Hi everybody and welcome to B007 Movie Reviews, where today we're going to have a chat about the latest Minions movie, which has been out for a month in the UK and just got released in the US. And today I am not alone, but I am joined by two guests from Vassals of Kingsgrave, which is an amazing geeky podcast, and you can find it at vokpodcast.wordpress.com. So first up I have Amber.
Hi guys, this is Amber.
Otherwise known as Queen of the Desert Island, and we also have Nadine.
Hello.
So I should explain that Amber is here because she just saw the movie last night, and Nadine's here as an expert on all things Minion.
And mostly comedy relief.
Exactly. So how would you rate the movie, Amber, given that you saw it last night? It's pretty fresher in your memory.
I loved it. 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 It made me so happy. I loved it.
Me too. I just think this is like the cleverest, funniest, cutest, most wonderfulest movie.
Adorable.
How do you rate it compared to the Despicable Me's?
I think maybe, I don't know. I think each is for a little bit of a different mood. This was kind of fun it almost felt like this is really silly, but it kind of felt like a foreign film without subtitles. Like you could kind of get the gist of what was happening, but I enjoyed not having to think about like dialogue, and it was just so easy to just sit back and laugh. And I didn't feel like the big bad and the actual plot was as serious as Despicable Me. So it was just a little more easy and fun, but I like them both.
And Nadine, you haven't seen it yet, but
yeah, I'm actually quite surprised that the people like it, because it's not often that you have sort of, and let's face it, in Despicable Me, they were never meant to be sort of main characters. They were like, comedy relief for the film. They were secondary characters, and it's not really common to hear that secondary characters, when they actually move into their own franchise, actually do really well. It's just that, they are the embodiment of, I would say, because they're meant to be responsible, because let's face it, they run Gru Industries, but at the same time they're completely and utterly, and I'm not saying stupid, but it's almost like they've got this sort of it's not quite nonsensical, but it is, but it's also this sort of unwillingness to grow up. They're just silly, and it's just, I'm going to do what I feel like doing. I'm going to be an adult, but I'm going to act like a kid. I'm going to act like a 6-year-old.
Yeah, they have this childlike energy, don't they? And this childlike joy at things. Like, oh, banana, exciting.
Yes.
And I think that's maybe what's lovable about them, is they remind us of what it's like to just have pure joy at stuff and not second guess or think of consequences. It's there, isn't it?
They live in the now.
Yeah, they live in the now.
They're fairly inept. But they have so much heart and good intentions that it's like they kind of win out in the end.
I was trying to think out, in the Despicable movies, did they have much screen time? Or were they just really cameos?
I think more in the second one.
Yeah, they did most sort of, some of the best scenes were the ones where where they were sort of interacting with Gru, or they were interacting with the girls. But, obviously, having not seen this movie now, it's difficult to compare. But yeah, they almost did seem like little cameo moments.
It was interesting to me trying to get the artwork for the online review of the film that I did, and looking up the old ones. And it was interesting to me that when you move from Despicable Me to the second movie, actually a lot of the posters just had the Minions on them. So it was almost like the studio realized that the true breakout stars were the Minions anyway.
Well, and I remember, forgive me if it was one of you that said it, but I heard somewhere someone saying that, they were pretty skeptical that because they were supposed to be this little sweet comic relief, can you take that and put it into 90 minutes of movie and not have it get old? And so I was thinking of that as I went in, and I just absolutely laughed through the whole thing. I thought they really carried it without being too much.
I agree. And I think it's actually, is this like the only spin-off movie that's successful? I was trying to really think of other spin-off comedy movies where it's lived up to or surpassed its originator film, and I think this is probably the best one. It's probably worth laying out a little bit of the plot. So instead of, I guess what's successful about it is it's a prequel. So you kind of start off on the opening credits with the sort of the natural history of the Minions, I guess, which is them as little amoeba floating around and sort of latching onto bigger and bigger big bad sharks. And finally they get on land and they sort of latch onto dinosaurs. And then men come, and so you kind of get this like really hilarious satire on history with them, you know, being minions, which is trying to help but being inept. And then they end up in this like icy cave and they kind of craft their own civilization. And then I guess the plot begins in the 60s, 70s, where they decide that one of them decides that he's going to go off and find a new big bad for them to sort of serve and be henchmen to. And so apparently, I didn't realize this until I read some like wiser reviews. The three minions, our three heroes, are meant to be, Stuart, Kevin and Bob, are meant to be like the three daughters of Gru. Did you get that? Like physically and personality-wise, they're meant to be mirrors to the girls?
Not at all, but now that you say it, you totally see it.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
This is it.
Huh.
Did you get it physically, Nadine, from the posters? Because I just totally didn't get that at all. But that made me...
Wait, no, I didn't get it until you said it. But now that when you think about it, sort of knowing this in hindsight, it does actually make a whole lot of sense because there is the bossy one, there is the sort of slightly silly, cute one, and there's the sort of what was the other? Because I remember the other daughter didn't seem to have much of a personality.
No discernible qualities, eh?
And that's like kind someone of like...
I know. Sorry, VOK, guys' night out, inject that. Yeah, and I wonder if it works at a subconscious level, that because you're familiar with those three characters and then you see them sort of referenced as minions, you kind of latch onto it, or whether there's just a certain chemistry that works. But I do find it amazing that they're so well delineated. Sorry, Amber.
Oh, no, sorry. I'm just saying, I'm just amazed now that you say it that I didn't recognize that. But
I do think I didn't realize also that it's the one guy, the co-director, who voices all the minions.
Well, I guess he knows the language then.
He must be the only person who knows the language. But I think it's amazing, like because they do have proper characters, and I guess that's what makes the movie work. That they are characters, even though they're talking gibberish, and that's just silliness.
Well, it's like silent films, you know. There was no dialogue, but you could still follow the story, and you know, for speaking a gibberish language, they still managed to say a lot.
Mm.
And actually, to me, part of the fun is picking out the words when they use like the occasional word or the occasional foreign phrase, and you're like, oh, that makes sense. You know, there is some logic.
My husband leans over and he's like, they're speaking Spanish. I was like, and also Italian and Latin. So cute.
I wonder if that's part of the charm, is that, you know, no matter what language you speak, you'll always find one word that you know.
Yeah, so there are audiences in sort of Mexico and Russia going, oh, they said that phrase. Yeah. Maybe it's just like really, really cunning marketing. But it is cute. And I think it's kind of interesting that at the start, they have a narration by Geoffrey Rush, which is really funny. And that kind of reduces as the film goes on. So I think it's quite clever that in case you're sort of slightly freaking out or kids aren't getting it, they have the narration. And once you get kind of comfortable and back in that minion speak, they sort of phase it out. So.
Well, and I kind of wondered if they would do a thing where, as the film progressed, if we would kind of understand them a little bit more. And I had hoped that they didn't do that, and they didn't really, but it was still very clear.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely works. And it's just brilliant. I think it's genius. So basically you have these minions. They turn up in the USA, and they're journeying to VillainCon, which is a satire on Comic-Con. Complete with all
very
H.
Timely.
And so they fall into the service of Scarlet Overkill, Sandra Bullock. So I have a lot of respect for little Miss Goody Two Shoes playing a villain. What did you think of her? Because there's no Gru, right? So, you know, Steve Carell, I guess, is the big star of Despicable Me. How did Sandra Bullock fill the hole, I guess?
I thought she did fine. You know, it was kind of one way or another. I didn't really care for the character. Like, that was the least engaging bit for me, was whenever she was on the screen. And John Hamm as well, because, I mean, he's amazing and wonderful, but they were a little bit underwhelming. Maybe it was because the Minions made me so happy. and that I could have just watched them without the big plot and the big bad. But I don't know what it was exactly, but I was just kind of like, she didn't seem, you got her motivation and why she was evil and what her plan was and why she had this hole in her heart that she needed to fill. But it was just kind of, I think she wasn't quite likable enough as a villain to be engaging.
Do you think she wasn't evil enough, or just
well,
not
that's
memorable
part of the
enough?
problem with some because you've either, with a villain, you've either got to go one of two ways. You've either got be the anti-villain, so you are technically bad, but there are underlying motivations which people go, oh yeah, if I went through that, I'd probably I'd probably turn to evil as well. Or they are so almost caricaturely evil that it's so bad they're good kind of scenario. And if you try to kind of be sort of too much in the middle, it doesn't really work either way.
Do you think it's just because we can't believe Sandra Bullock as a villain, or do you think it's just the writing wasn't strong enough? Bit of both.
I think I wouldn't have known if it was Sandra Bullock. If I didn't feel like her personality or anything really leaked too much into the character. I just thought they were trying to go for kind of a almost Joker-like, where she's so insane and over the top evil that it makes for a charismatic character, and I just wasn't
buying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in retrospect it's weird. I didn't sort of notice it as much at the time, but I just realised that I have really no memory of her and that character in this film, because I just have so many cool little scenes playing of minions doing crazy shit. So, so for Nadine's benefit, they end up basically going to England, and in some bizarre twist of fate, one of them becomes King of England.
The little one, the cute, adorable
King Bob.
one.
And there is the Queen of England does play a role. She's voiced by Jennifer Saunders, who I thought was really funny. So yeah, it was quite fun being English and seeing this whole sort of Buckingham Palace sort of military, and some of the lines around, oh well, now you must be king. Technically, that kind of stuff was quite funny. Poking fun at the bureaucracy and sort of old ways of England. I thought it was quite funny. Let's not spoil it, but how did you find the plot though? Did you like all that English stuff, or did you think it was just hokey?
Me?
Yeah, because
I thought it was adorable. I thought it was fun. I also was thinking, oh, I wonder what Bina and Nadine are gonna are they gonna recognize stuff? How accurate was it?
The architecture of Buckingham Palace and the London scenery is really spookily kind of, it's just really high quality and well researched, I think. And similarly, all the 60s stuff and the way they use 60s music is just really witty and really great.
Well, some of the best comedy stuff is when you look at it and you go, I know that person. I've been in that situation. I've seen that happen. That's the best comedy.
Yeah,
so
there's a definite familiarity. But I think it's some of the best parts for me just play music videos with kind of cheesy 60s tunes, and like you say, it's the visual humor of the minions, the facial expressions. It's just
in the scene, it's not a spoiler, but the little musical number from a certain musical just made me so happy. I was like, am I the only one in this whole room that knows this song? This is so great.
Yeah.
It was very kind of out of left field. It was super fun. The wide array of just kind of cultural touch points.
Indeed,
fabulous.
Yeah, and actually that's what I quite like, because at the end of the day, this is a shameless cash-in movie. This is a big franchise, big studio, and they've got this unexpected hit, and they've done this spin-off to get even more money in. So it could have felt a little bit forced and sort of machine-made. But these kind of little gonzo moments where it's what? Where did that come from? Just it makes me happy that they still allowed the filmmakers that room to be creative and crazy and a bit weird. So, yeah. I think that's the secret of films like this. They don't feel too manipulative or franchisey.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to wonder if it was just lightning in a bottle, where it was literally just that perfect storm of an idea that, was just so universal that it didn't seem forced, but at the same time, because of that universality, everybody was willing to pay to go and see it.
Yeah, and we need some good slapstick comedy, right? Don't we? We've had, in the manner of the Three Stooges or the Marx Brothers. I think it's been a long time we've been waiting for some good physical comedy. So
it's funny that you say that, because they do remind me of the Three Stooges. That the three of them, they always that sort of playing off of each other. It's not one is funny; they are funny as a group.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you said, do you hear the box office? It's number one at the box office, and it took 100. Let me just see. According to IMDb Pro, it took 115 million at the box office this weekend, compared to Jurassic Park with 18 million, Inside Out 17, Terminator at 14. Terminator's really not done as well as people thought.
Yeah, I was really surprised at how. Well, we usually go on opening night, which is like a Thursday, so it's rare that we go to a Saturday night movie, so maybe that was it. But I was surprised at how packed the theater was.
It's taken over 200 million internationally. Apparently, it's the second biggest animated opening ever after Shrek the Third at 121 million, and Toy Story 3 only got 110. So yeah, I think this is definitely a breakout hit, which I guess means there will be another Minions movie coming our way.
I would watch it.
But what would you do? Because they kind of take it up to the point where Gru's a little kid, so they squeeze in another middle movie between.
I think that's probably the one that'll feel forced.
What, the squeezing in the middle one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
Or I suppose they could, take it after Despicable Me somehow and have Gru just kind of be a little more of a background character, just kind of flip-flop, so that they're in the foreground a little more. But yeah, it might be a little tricky.
Yeah, I wonder how Steve Carell really feels about it. They stole his limelight. And then I was thinking, as a studio, it's really cheap to make, isn't it? Because you don't have to pay for Steve Carell. I mean, I guess you have to have a baddie, though. But it's basically quite cheap. Because you just get the director to do everything. Is there anything else we want to say about Minions? Anything good, bad, ugly?
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Make sure to stay for the ending credit scene.
Oh, really? What happens? Shit, I didn't do that.
For goodness sake, Bina.
You've been to enough Marvel films to know now the standard is that after the final credits roll, there is always a 30-second, something like 18 to 30-second clip right at the end.
But this one Marvel.
This one was a good. It was a full-on musical number with all the characters.
Okay,
it was amazing.
I'll have to go onto YouTube and find it.
Yes, and actually, so you don't run pee then. I'll get on my Run P soapbox. Have you heard of Run P? It's awesome.
No. What is this thing you speak of?
So Run P is an app, which I'm not really an app girl, but it basically they have people from all over the world. I guess they got their info from some girl in Australia, but they go and see the movie the first moment it opens, and then they break down. They not only do reviews, but the main thing is.
Run pee as in go use the bathroom.
Yes,
I just
Googled they tell you, okay, they'll give you like multiple times at 36 minutes. This is the best time. When this character says this line, then you can go run pee for 4 minutes, and it'll give you a synopsis of what happened while you were gone.
This is like the most useful thing ever invented.
It's amazing. It tells you if you're running late, what happens in the first 3 minutes. There's a little check mark, yes or no, whether there are credits at the ending scenes. And not only do they tell you if there's after credit scenes, but they say, okay, the credits run for 7 minutes, and then there's a 30-second scene at the end of that. Or
okay,
no,
listeners, this is runpee.com. Brilliant. Genius.
Yes. And it does have the screen is black, so theoretically you could use it during the movie. I don't do that because I know some people get real upset.
Me.
But it does have a timer where you can put your phone in your pocket to buzz at certain times. But I just kind of remember, okay, roughly 36 minutes, and I remember what the cue is, and then I do that way.
So how do they? So this is basically volunteers sending the information.
Yeah, I think it's some guy and his wife, and usually they go see it first. But sometimes if there's an early release in another country, then they'll have a fan send in the info.
That's brilliant. Well, there you go.
I love it.
That's added to my my world knowledge.
Glad to help.
So there you go. In the spirit of keeping things short and sharp, as is the B007 way, unless there's anything anyone else wants to say about the Minions, we can close it out. Thank you for listening. The movie has a runtime of 91 minutes and is rated PG. Cool. Thank you for joining, Amber and Nadine.
Thank you for the invite.
Thank you very much.